we have a new middleweight champion in the UFC, and we're here to break down one of the biggest upsets we've seen in recent time. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to StayWeighedIn YouTube channel. I'm joined by my man Ray. How you doing?
I'm hot, but come back from a long cycle. But my goodness, what a surprise I woke up to today.
Well, you said it, man. It was like I said. I wasn't. We said it both of us. We weren't really too fussed about this. It was one of them cards where it worked for the guys who were watching it live, but for us, it didn't do as much. But boy, did we get an upset. So let's go straight into it. And Israel Adesanya, no longer middleweight champion, beaten comfortably, you can say as well, by Sean Strickland. So
That's
let's
crazy.
go into the fight itself. Off the bat, round one, Israel Adesanya gets dropped, and I think he felt the power and realized potentially this isn't going to go the way he did. But he did bounce back in round two. But then 3, 4, and 5, it was like the Sean takeover. I know we saw Sugar Sean become world champion, but we didn't expect this. But talk to me about this fight and what you saw transpire and how this actually occurred.
It's funny, in a few group chats, we've been having this discussion about how often certain champions are fighting, and it's always been commendable that Israel fights so often. But one thing I remember on Joe Rogan Experience, Faraz Sahabi, I think the first time he came on, he mentioned something to GSP's longevity, and he goes, the reason why he held the title for so long, it wasn't just because it was great, but it was preparation. And he goes, maximum you should be fighting is 3 times a year. 2 is a good year for a champion.
Yeah.
And he explained it because especially with MMA, with the sport being so vast and so much stuff to learn, you need time just to not be in camp and learn. And I think people forget that when a fighter's in camp, you're not really learning new things. What you're doing is repetition of what you know and applying tactics to, make it specific for your opponent, but you're not learning new things. A lot of the time, you're not learning and practicing new things to then put into your fight camp. So with someone like Izzy, I'm not saying this is definitely the case, but you could maybe argue is like, when do you have time to develop if you're always in camp, in fight camp? Because this guy, the regularity that this guy fights at is crazy. And the fact that his body hasn't broken down, or maybe here's the thing, we don't know if his body has broken down and he's just hidden it.
We'll hold that thought because I was going to ask you something very soon, but carry on.
Yeah. So I just feel like this is just, for me, it could be burnout. It could just be that day wasn't his day and Sean was the better man on that day. Sean just stuck it on him in a way that many others haven't. Like, it's almost like he didn't respect his kickboxing. He did to an extent, but it's like you can't give it too much respect that you're not going to get your own off. And I feel like Sean just stood in his face and was just like, what I feel happens sometimes with some of the best strikers, pure strikers, shall I say, is that they get, it's almost like, it's weird to say, it's like their technique is almost too clean for their own good. And what I mean by that is that they want to do everything so textbook that it's just like, no, sometimes you need to go in there and just stick it on someone, make it a fight. Don't make it like a,
Technical 5-round master.
yeah, technical, like go in there and be blood and not all the way blood and guts, but just go in there and be prepared to fight. Go on your shield. And I think that's what Strickland done. It was just like, I'm not gonna go into the technical game with you, all that fancy kickboxing stuff. Here's a nice 1-2, bam, in your face, and then that was it. That was his main thing, was just like, I'm gonna stay in your face. He was blocking a lot of the kicks well, we were checking them, and then he just stayed there with a basic 1-2, and then like stood his ground. And I think that was one of the things that Izzy's been known to be a counter striker, but he was on a back foot a bit too much. He was circling a bit too much, and I feel like him letting Sean set pace and be the aggressor worked against him.
I was going to say, you kind of said something that was interesting about being the aggressor and stuff. In this fact, because he felt his power so early in the first round, do you think that basically took Izzy out of the game plan? Because, I mean, he did rebound in the second, but again, when it came to the third, and especially I think the fourth, which was kind of the round that flipped the switch completely, and it was a case of Izzy, you kind of need to finish him at this point. Was feeling the power early kind of a sign for Izzy that he didn't really expect? Because so with Aljamain as well, he kind of said it as well. He goes, "Damn, I didn't think Sean hits this hard." Do you think Izzy felt similar and was like, "I'm surprised I got hit this hard," and the fact that he hits as hard as he does?
Not all the way, only because I feel like Izzy's fought someone like Pereira. You know what power is. I just think it's a case of the Sean Strickland sticking on him and just weren't giving him time to breathe. You're not going to get off your fancy techniques. I'm not going to allow you to go in there and counter, because I think it's similar to the Yoel Romero fight when people used to complain about Izzy. He is a counter striker, so he needs you to go in there a bit reckless, and then that's when he'll catch you. But Sean was going forward enough, but he wasn't reckless enough for Izzy to then start countering. And I think that's what Sean done well, where he just went in there and was just like stuck to his game plan, kept it as a basic 1-2, ruffled feathers a bit, got in there, bit of dirty boxing and such. And I think that's what you need sometimes. Like, you can't always think you're going to go in there and have the cleanest technique. And do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I get you want to be a samurai, go in there, shing, 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 fight done, you're gone. But sometimes they're like, no, put your sword down, put your hands up and go in there, have a blood and guts. Not all the way blood and guts fight, but you got to dirty yourself a bit. And I feel like that's what Sean done and Izzy wasn't prepared to do. And I feel like that style that he has, people are starting to catch up to him. So this is the time when you go back to the drawing board. And in all honesty, he might be lucky. He's fortunate to get a title rematch, because in all honesty, this reminds me of Brandon Moreno, where it was like he fought Figueroa, he lost, he got his belt back, he fought Pantoja, and then he lost that, and then now it's not looking like flyweight is going to be with Moreno again for the next title fight anyway. And I feel like with Izzy is a similar situation where it's like you won your title, you lost your title, you won your title back, and then you lost it again. Maybe Duplessis is the guy that should be getting a title shot instead, but Dana's saying that Izzy's going to get that instant rematch.
So I was going to say, this is interesting because you said a little bit before about Izzy potentially slowing down. 3-3 in his last fights. Okay, albeit one with Jan Blachowicz where he moved up, Alex Pereira, his boogeyman, and now here. In between there, 3 solid wins again, being able to beat Alex Pereira as well. Are we seeing Izzy slow down slowly then? Is it fair to actually say that he can be slowing down at this moment in time?
I can't tell whether it's him slowing down or everyone else catching up.
Okay.
Because here's another thing as well. When you fight so much, people have footage on you. And like I said, what Faraz Zahabi was saying, whenever you got time to just learn new techniques and go in there, apply it, you haven't, because you're always fighting, you're always in fight camp. So then it's like people are watching you and you're in fight camp, so you can't add new techniques to the fold, then it's going to become easier to suss you out, because it's just like, all right, cool, he does this, he does that, I know how to deal with it. And then I think that's what it showed. And even just the tactics of like, you wanted to be the person to counter so much. Obviously, this takes into mind, we don't know whether he's carrying any injuries. And I feel like sometimes, obviously, a lot of people know fighters do carry a lot of injuries, but there's levels to it. And then some people just guy it through no matter what. And they're too headstrong for their own good.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this is a situation, but can't take anything away from Strickland, but definitely not the best Izzy. However, your game is always going to be limited if you are going in there on a I'm only going to strike situation. You can't, like, this ain't the old days, because then even funnily enough, the day before we were discussing about who's the GOAT of the middleweight division. And we were just like, you know what? It could be easy because the quality of opponents, it could be. But then the next day, one of my guys was just like, Ashley from Calf Kick Sports was just like, listen, man, Anderson Silva never lost those type of fights when it was in his reign. And I said, fair enough, that's the GOAT for a reason. But yeah,
a lot of people looked at this as one of the biggest upsets. I'm going to name a few. Tell me where you want to rank this particular fight. So you got BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, Nunes, Penna, and then GSP's Sarah. So you throw them in there. including this in this fight, where's this fight ranked in terms of UFC upsets for you?
Penn Edgar is a throwback because I remember watching that with my boy Daniel.
BJ Penn was something else.
BJ Penn was tearing up everyone at lightweight. I think that was coming off of he beat Diego Sanchez with a head kick. Then he beat Kenny Florian, if I'm correct. And then Kenny Florian was the guy back then.
Yeah, bro, he was on the OG UFC game on the cover.
Listen, Kenny Florian is one of my guys. And I believe he would be the equivalent now of like a Dustin Poirier in regards to that's like a guy high level, maybe not got the title, but they'll kill anybody else that's not the champion. And then I believe after the Kenny Florian fight, he tried to face. Yeah, because I think it was coming off. He lost to GSP, then he faced Kenny Florian, if I got my timeline correct. And then he went to face Frankie Edgar. And that, I don't know, for whatever reason, I even went into that fight thinking Frankie might do it. I don't know why, but that is a good shot. I think that's more similar than Pena versus Nunes was just a whole different type of situation. I think Sarah, GSP, and Pena Nunes, those two are the top two. Like, I can't believe this has just happened.
Yeah.
Then below that, I think it is Strickland versus Adesanya, and then Edgar Penn. That is such a good throwback. You've actually got me down memory lane. What a good throwback.
Do you know what? When I was peak UFC, that was the Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture. That was my. I like it now, and I still will watch it. But back then, I was up 1 o'clock. I was missing nothing in prelims or
Facebook prelims, all of that stuff.
But let's talk then with the middleweight division going forward. Obviously, the idea is Izzy does get the rematch. If for whatever reasons, injuries, whatever, that doesn't happen, how much of with this loss now, how much does it open up the middleweight division to be like similar to a point, not as much because Leon for me is better skilled and is a better champion in a sense that, but it still opened up the division when Kamaru Usman obviously lost. In this case, how much does it open up the middleweight division for you?
I feel bad. I don't know the word feel bad because I despise this person's guts. I have empathy, but not sympathy because he's a piece of shit, pardon my language, and a prick. DDP might just get screwed over because obviously that was the initial plan. Duplessis was meant to face Izzy. And then now it's kind of like with Strickland winning, if Izzy doesn't get the rematch, then it's just like people forgetting Paulo Costa versus Hamza is next month. And then a lot of people are thinking whoever wins that is going to be the one that's going to, leapfrog to the front.
DDP is ranked number 1 right now to be up there because obviously he's winning against Whitaker.
Let me tell you something. DDP is ranked number 1, and I've also seen a bantamweight champion being crowned in Sean O'Malley, where a long-standing champion is not going to get a rematch, and neither is the highest ranked person underneath him, being Marab, is apparently going to get skipped as well. So everything with the rankings a pinch of salt because the UFC might just be like, we want this instead anyway. But that's what I feel like what might happen to DDP because if Hamzat then wins his fight in a static fashion, they are going to fast track Hamza to that belt expeditiously. I'm sure they'd want Izzy first Hamza, and I'm pretty sure that's why they're going to do the rematch with Sean and Izzy to see if Izzy can get his belt back. Then Hamzat versus Paulo winner can face them because, in all honesty, man, there ain't no money in Sean. I love the whole chaos of it, but there's no money in Sean.
I was gonna say literally, if you like Sean Strickland at this point, you're on top of the world. You've won the belt. You've had one of the biggest upsets. Do you at this time?
It's not even just the upset; it's the manner in which he done it.
Do you actually care what happens to you going forward? Because I'm gonna say a bit, not as much, but I'll put Andy Ruiz in it. When he beat Joshua,
did
he really care what happened afterwards? Because you've done it. You've completed a mission that no one expected you to do. So yes, as a fighter, you want to progress, whatever, but you're the money guy. You're going to be the first name on the billing right now. It's going to be Strickland versus Adesanya. It's not going to be Adesanya
You know what it
versus...
is? Here's the thing though with that, and this is why I always give Canelo and even AJ for when he was champion so much credit. Becoming champion is one thing. Staying champion is even harder. And the fact that AJ and Canelo, with the amount of money that they've gotten in prize money alone, let alone everything else, the fact that you can still stay hungry as fighters is crazy. Because that spotlight, there's many champions before. You get that peak moment, and then the spotlight becomes too bright when you're now the hunted, and then it's like all the contenders are coming after you, and you know you get to that spotlight, and sometimes you don't like it, and you end up losing. So we still need to find out about Strickland, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes with like him being the favorite, him being the quote unquote star of the division. And as for Izzy,
star of the division, it just is.
well, it's that is where it is, and then it'll be interesting to see how like Izzy responds, because especially like I said, if he takes his rematch, is he gonna do a quick turnaround, which I wouldn't recommend, but he knows himself. And then also it's kind of like what happens to DDP. As much as I despise the prick, he does deserve his title shot, and he's earned that. But then if Hamzat wins, that's the guy that they've been trying
to push.
They've been dying to push. But him against Paulo Costa, that's not an easy fight, so it'll be interesting to find out.
I'm going to just wrap up with this right now. What do you think Dana's thinking?
Get Izzy that belt back.
Do you know what? We're going to leave it as simple as that. That's literally as simple as it can be, you know. But with that, we are going to wrap up today's episode. This was actually an episode that probably wasn't going to happen because we thought it was a foregone conclusion, but we had to come here, talk about it, and now we want your views on it. If you enjoy the content, drop a like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. It was a quiet week for boxing, but the UFC came in with a bang. With that, we'll wrap up. Appreciate you for jumping on, Ray. And as always, guys, stay weighted.
Pow.